Good morning. This is Vanessa. I wanted to share with you because this is what I've noticed is that whenever something is present for me and it's happening inside of my heart and is something I'm dealing with, that those are the ways that I can most powerfully serve you because it's present for me. And it's likely something that you can relate to. And something that's present for me is this subject about how to deal with your critics. So I just want to ask you, is there something that's in your heart that you want to do, that you want to create, that you want to share, a message? Perhaps you want to do more of these Facebook Lives and you're concerned about putting yourself out there because of the critics. And so I just want to share with you a little bit. And I just am so grateful for those of you that I see on here that I know. I see Gil, warms my heart to see you. I saw some others that I know. And I know this is morning time. And so a lot of you are probably going to catch this. Hey, Robin. I know a lot of you are going to probably catch this as a replay. And that's okay. So welcome to those of you who are watching this as a replay. And one of the things I want to share is about criticism, because this is something that's present for me right now. And the reason why I'm sharing this on my personal page is because personally for me, there are some things that I want to share that have been bubbling up for me in my personal life that have become very present for me. I just lost my grandma a couple of weeks ago. Gosh, I'm getting emotional. This is harder than I thought. Thank you, guys. This is harder than I thought to share this. It's perfect. It's perfect because when I gave the tribute to my grandmother a couple weeks ago, I said, say what you need to say. Because she was this woman who passed on as a heritage to me and my family. She wrote me letters growing up and she was so expressive. And my dad, it's a tremendous gift, any of you who are women or even men, you know, to have an expressive father who can express his love is a tremendous gift. And my dad was that way to me. And I think that part of that came from my grandmother. And so when I got the chance to share a tribute for her, the theme that I chose was John Mayer's song, Say What You Need to Say. Because to me, my grandmother represented this expression of self, expression of love, expression of emotion, expression of connection. And she passed that on to my dad. And it's something that I really work on is expressing, because I feel like our relationships and sharing and that it's just a skill set that I'm dedicated to developing. Hey, Fred. Hey, Stephanie. And so it's perfect that this is coming up. Emotions coming up for me because my grandmother passed a couple weeks ago and my mom passed 5 years ago. Just literally, I think it was like May 6th. So I'm recording this video within a couple of days of her anniversary of her death. And what happened 5 years ago when my mom passed is that I received, thank you, Shar. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for this safe environment that you are to me here on my personal page. As a matter of fact, several weeks ago, I just started going through and removing or not friends, but people that were connected to me on Facebook that I didn't know. And I said, you know what? I'm noticing that I'm probably going to be sharing some things that are very vulnerable and very present for me. And I just want to create a safe environment on my Facebook page to be able to do that. It's one thing for me to do it in a written format. It's another thing for me to do it in a video format like this. And so I just cleared, thank you, Joey. I just cleared a whole bunch of people that I was like, I don't know who these people are. And you know how it is in our recent political climate. There's so many people blasting stuff up on Facebook, and I was just like, gosh, I don't want that. That's not the noise that I want on my personal page. And so I just went through and cleared a bunch of people because I knew that this message was bubbling up inside of me. And so therefore, I personally wanted to create an environment that felt safe for me. And so you guys who are here on my personal page, I'm connected to you and I trust you, and that's why I'm choosing to share this, because it's bubbling up for me. With my grandmother's passing and the anniversary of my mother's passing, this message is bubbling up. Now, many of you know that I'm a business coach. I mean, I speak ad nauseum about marketing and sales and business with my clients. But here on this page, I want to share some things that are a bit more personal in nature. And 5 years ago when my mom passed, one of the things that started bubbling up is this book that's called I'll Have What She's Having. And the subtitle to that book is Become the Woman You Want to Be by Loving the Woman You Are. And it's been my journey, and my mom's passing had a lot to do with me uncovering and healing ways that I wasn't even loving myself. And it's bubbling up again, you guys. It's bubbling up again with her anniversary of her passing, as well as my grandmother's death. And so I am sharing this on here. It feels so vulnerable. I'm very much in touch with the sensitivity that we have about our critics. And so if you are having something stir up in you, or maybe it's been a desire of yours in the past of something that you want to do, and maybe it's write a book, maybe it's speak publicly, maybe it's share your story publicly, maybe it's to take advantage of Facebook Live like this, maybe it's to create a business that's around your passion. I don't know what it is for you, but all of us have things that are on our heart that we let the critics come in and stifle it. So I want to share with you, like right now, while it's present for me, some of the things that is coming up and what I'm doing around this, because this has been super, super powerful for me and super powerful in my life. And so these are what they are. Number one, exactly like I shared in earlier about creating a safe environment. Do you have a safe place? Friends, do you have, type in a 1 in the chat. If you, hey Tara, hey Jennifer, type in a 1 in the chat if there's a safe place for you. So that might be close friends. That might be people who know you. I mean, there's many of you here on my personal page, friends of you, that just thinking about you warms my heart. It makes me feel seen. It makes me feel so seen because some of you know my heart. And I'll share with you about this thing about critics and about how we fear our heart being misunderstood. Shar, Jennifer, you guys have safe environments. Anyone else, if you have a safe environment, type in a 1. This is so critical. If you don't have it, cultivate it, nurture it. It's so important because when the world beats you up, and I'm going to talk about that, who is the world when we want to put in that generalization, who are those safe friends? Who are those places that you can go to that you feel supported and seen and known? As a matter of fact, I have shared very openly here recently that roughly 7 months ago, I went through a major crash physically. I'm still recovering, but it was one of the ways that my body has completely shut down. And everything started to shut down for me. My brain, primarily, my energy, my voice, my hands, I couldn't type. They felt so arthritic. And so what happened is that I had some close friends, some masterminds that I participate in, and dear, close, precious friends who had to remind me, Vanessa, you will get through this. And they had to say things like, you're a phoenix that will rise from these ashes. And it was like, I had to be reminded that, yes, this does not define me, and I will make it through this. So those people have been so life-giving to me. So that's a one, is to make sure that you create a safe environment for yourself. Number two, I want to talk about when we feel criticized, what we do is our brain tries to say that it's the whole world, it's them, right? It becomes this overwhelming, big feeling that our critics are a lot of people. And the thing is that typically, and this is something that I got from Martha Beck in her book, Your True North, Discovering Your True North Star. And it's that if you write it down, if you took the time to write down whose criticism you fear, it's typically 7 people or less. 7 people or less. Can you think of somebody that is one of those critics for you? If so, I just want you to put a heart in the chat, because let's send them love, right? And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But put a heart, like if you can put as many hearts of how many people you can think of that have been critics in your life. Just put multiple hearts. We'll send them all love. But what Martha Beck says is that if we took the time to write it down, we've experienced pain in our past that we're projecting to our future, and it's usually 7 people or less. And one of the things that I've discovered is that one of those 7 people is typically ourselves. So we have critics, maybe it's 6 people and ourselves. Those 7 people we project as the them, a bunch of people that are our critics. And Jennifer, I see you. Gil, you're reading the North Star right now. Yeah, and do you remember? Have you seen that? Or have you gotten to that part? Have you gotten to that part already about how she says it's usually 7 people? And so those critics, hey Jill, those critics are typically 7 people that we project as being the world. Hey Jennifer, oh, love you guys. It warms my heart to see you on here. And so if we look and we took the time to write those down, it's usually 6 people, and we're usually the 7th one who is our critic that is in our mind that's present. And so that's one thing that helps to dispel it. And I love what Brené Brown says about this in her book. I can't remember which book it's in. I think it's in her Daring Greatly book, where she talks about this quote. And it's about the quote that says, the critic. Who is the critic? Most people who are the critics, they're the people that are staying in the stands. They're not the people who are in the arena. And I can't remember who, it's one of the presidents, I think, that she quotes on that. And so she says, like, don't criticize me if you're not in the arena. And what I love is that so many of the people that I'm surrounded by, you guys, we're in the arena. We're daring to create things in the world. We're daring to put ourselves out there. We're daring to serve powerfully. And what happens is the critics are the ones that are on the sidelines watching. They don't dare to get inside. They don't dare to get inside the arena. And so I love that she's like, listen, you get in the arena. You get in the arena with me, then you can tell me and give me feedback. But if you're not willing to get in the arena, then keep your opinions to yourself. So that's number 2. So number 1 is that you create a safe space for yourself. Number 2 is notice that the critics are usually 7 people or less, and you're usually yourself. And we project that as being a whole bunch of people. So let me talk about the third thing. The third thing is, I turn it all around. So I'm going to share very, very vulnerably about this right now. I don't think I've ever shared this. Oh, here it is. Fred, thank you for saving me. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is, it cuts it off, who is actually in the arena, I think is what it says. It's cutting it off. So thank you, Fred, for saving me. That's the quote. And so, but one of the things that I want to share with you about criticism, because for me, one of those 7 people on my list, was my mom, who passed 5 years ago. And it's been a journey to forgive her. But I want to tell you what I've learned about that experience of forgiveness and about bringing compassion to our critics. And there's this quote I want to read. And it's a quote by Yogi Bhajan. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he says, if you're willing to look at another person's behavior towards you as a reflection of the state of their relationship with themselves, rather than a statement about your value as a person, then you will, over a period of time, cease to react at all. So I'm going to share, this is something that I've never shared this publicly. It's in my book, but I've never shared this publicly. And the book is not out yet, so this feels super, super vulnerable. So one of those critics for me was my mom. And growing up, I felt so misunderstood by her. I felt like she didn't know the real me. And I was like, what are you not getting about me? Like, I felt like she had a projection of who I was as a child or as a young lady, as a teenager, as a woman that wasn't even the real me. And it did a real number on my relationship with God. I will tell you that, because she would constantly project out like ways that she would point out like how I was failing God, basically. And I've come to an immense amount of forgiveness towards her. And literally when she passed 5 years ago, I had to pray, God, let everything that is not of who you really are pass with her. Pass with her. Because there was a lot of good of that she brought in my connection with God. But I was like, whatever is not of you, let it pass. And I had to go through this whole thing about, I forgive myself for not being good enough for my mother's God. Because it was always this thing of like, at my core, I felt like the questioning of who I was as a person was questioned. It was like, because it's one thing, right? When somebody may criticize our behaviors or maybe criticize something at a surface level, but it's so much more painful when it's at the core. And that was something my mom was masterful at. And I always would feel like even if I had all this armor on, that she was the one who she had a way to pierce, like she would find where the breastplate and the shoulder plate of the armor that I had built, where they overlapped, and she could like find a sword and like pierce through between those two and go straight to my heart. Is there a critic in your life who has that capacity? If that's true, I just want you to put an emoji. I don't even care. Just choose an emoji to put in there if you can relate to that. Like somebody who has the ability to, between the breastplate and the shoulder plate, pierce their sword through and go straight to your heart. She had that. I'm like, how can you do that? It's like a superpower. And I would go in all protected and think I'm going to be safe emotionally. And then it was like, boom, she would be able to find and get her sword right to my heart. And one of the things that she used to say is, this is hard to say publicly. One of the things that she used to say, and I won't even say the word out loud because in case there's any children in your presence as you're watching this, but my mom used to call me the C word. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. It felt so difficult to be misunderstood as a young lady. Like, I had a bunch of guy friends growing up. Like, if any of my high school friends are on here, like, I've always been a lover of people. And so I had tons of guy friends, and it was like my mom misunderstood. Like, she projected what was going on, and I was never involved with any of those guys. None of them. Nobody. Till my husband. Till we got married. But she projected this C word onto me, right? And it was like, wait, what? Like, I don't even understand why you're saying this. I never felt like I could overcome this projection that she had of me. But the third thing that I want to say about dealing with your critics is to turn around, and like, this seems so crazy that I'm saying this, but it's such a powerful practice. Turn it around and see, how is this true? How is the criticism that they're giving you true? Now, you might be thinking, whoa, Vanessa, this seems crazy. Like, for me to turn around one of the most painful things, which was my mom calling me the C word, and to turn around and see how it was true, this is what I discovered on that journey. I discovered, as a woman, I wasn't even owning my own sexuality. I wasn't even owning my femininity as a result of that judgment from her. So it was like year 13. I've been married now 18 years with my husband. It wasn't until like year 13 in our marriage that I started to come alive sexually in our relationship. And it was like I was holding in contempt that part of me as a result of that judgment from her. And so turn it around and see, how is it true? The other thing that I gained from turning around and saying, how is this true? I studied Carolyn May's, her work, and she talks about the archetypes, which is basically like characteristics of how we all may show up, or maybe it's like understanding different ways that we may show up. And she talks about like 3 or 4 archetypes that are in all of us. The archetype of the child. So that's the part of us that may sometimes feel helpless, may sometimes feel like the world's bigger than us. There's the archetype of the victim that's in all of us. The victim is the one that says, like, this is happening to me. We feel reactors of life rather than empowered to be creators of it. We sometimes want to blame. We want to act like we can't change our circumstances. Those are all the victim. All of us have that. The third one that Carolyn Mays talks about is the archetype of the prostitute. Okay? Now, so this C word that my mom used to call me, and this archetype of the prostitute. Now, I know this is deep. I'm going deep now. And it's not a sexual connotation when she talks about this. She talks about it as like the parts of us that sell out. Now, I have another book, Profit with Honor, which is how to get to the top in your industry without burning out, selling out, or losing out. Because one of the things in working with entrepreneurs and business owners is I found the ways that we sell out ourselves for money. We may sell out our soul. We may sell out our integrity. We may sell out our bodies, like working all ends and not taking care of ourselves. We may sell out and say yes to something that's not in 100% alignment with what we're here to do, because we feel like we're pursuing the opportunity for fear of loss. We might sell out by going into business with somebody that inside of our heart we're getting a check like, this might not be right. That's selling out. We might sell out by creating a business or doing something that feels safe versus what our soul is calling us to do. We might sell out by, one of the phrases that I say contributes to selling out is when people say, do something for 3 to 5 years and then you can enjoy the rest of your life. Well, that's selling out, because usually there's this immense amount of sacrifice that people do, neglecting their relationships, neglecting other areas of their life, thinking that one day, that later on down the road, they'll be able to enjoy it. Meanwhile, they're selling out the right now. Okay. So those are all examples of how that archetype, which she calls the prostitute archetype, I call this sellout is present in all of us. So here was this extremely painful thing that my mom used to say about me. And I turned it around and said, how is it true? How is it true? And I will tell you that there's an author that I really love. Maybe you've read some of her stuff. Her name is Glennon Doyle Melton. And she's written a book called The Love Warrior. She's written a book, This Wild and Messy Life. I forget all the books that she's written. But she's very, very vulnerable and has served powerfully to share of her story and inspire others in vulnerability. And I have loved her work. And recently she made a life choice that was really judged. In particular, it was judged by the Christian community. And there was this very harsh article that was written about her, I think in Christianity Today. And you guys, I'll tell you, all of us come from tribes. All of us come from, and that's what part of the critics that we may be concerned about is the tribes that we've come from. So I've been really a part of the church a good part of my life. And there's things that are in my book, I'll have what she's having, that I am fearful of because I had to go through my own processing, as I shared with my mom's passing, of reorienting my relationship with God. That was really different than some of the stuff that I'd grown up believing. And so I share those things in there as a desire for helping people to heal their relationship with God as it's been misrepresented. And I won't say by all, but I would say as it's been misrepresented by some people who, would align themselves with the faith. And so when I saw her come out and I saw how harsh this article was about her, to turn that around in order to give me courage to get my book and my work out into the world, you know what I did? I took that harsh article about her and I replaced her name with my name. I copied and pasted it and I replaced her name with my name because I said, you know what? I need to be ready. The critics will come out as soon as I put my work out more in the world, whether it's my book or these Facebook Lives, the critics will come out. So let me be ready and let me turn it around and see how is it true. Because when a critic comes at you and says something, and thank you guys for all the love that I see with the comments and the thumbs, thank you. When the critics come out, if we will see it as a gift, like how is it true? Can I see part of it that's true? Because it will help me grow. And it'll give us compassion for the fact that some of these things are present in all of us. And so I replaced her name with my name. And I said, I need to be ready. And one of the things that I love that, I think it was Judith Orloff. No, I don't know. It was somebody that I was watching recently, and she was at an event, and this woman, she walked up to the woman and she said, how can I help you? And the woman had her arms crossed, and she's like, I don't know. How can you help me? And she's like, oh my gosh. And this woman said like something extremely harsh to her. And so she, you know what her response was? And I loved this. She sat down, she said, I'm going to sit right here, right next to you until I figure out the gift in your comment. Isn't that powerful? That when your critic says something to you, that you can pause long enough and see, where's the gift in this? By turning it around, where is the gift in this? How is it true? As a matter of fact, and some of you may be able to relate to this who are in business. I know I work with a lot of clients who are just so big-hearted, and you are bleeding hearts. And maybe you grew up with a culture, an environment where it's looked down upon to charge for your services. So I have so many people who I work with to help them earn what they're worth. I mean, there's a verse that says the workman is worthy of his wages. And I happen to work in helping people create premium brands and being best at what they do so that people pay them high fees. And so believe you me, all kinds of stuff comes up inside of us when we're talking about that. And I remember one time, and many people get concerned about being judged as greedy or as money hungry or all of that. And for me, one time, I noticed with a business partner that I was with, like I was doing, actually was a friend, but we had done some business together. And I was like, had allocated my entire team to help with a whole bunch of launches and to do a whole bunch of work. And then I was like, whoa, wait, this isn't feeling good. Can we talk about this? Because let me talk about this boundary. My team needs to get paid. So I really want to talk about how this could look like. Let's find something that feels good between us, but my team needs to get paid. Like I knew, like for me to bring up money with a friend, like it was a potentially sensitive subject. And going into that, I turned it around, just like I'm talking to you guys here to do. I turned it around and I was like, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid that he's going to think I'm greedy. I know that he's going to misconstrue this as potentially that it's all about the money for me. And it's not. I just had a boundary where I couldn't keep doing what I was doing and having my team work because it was outside the scope of what our original agreement had been. And so we need to revisit the agreement. And so you know what I did? I went and looked up the word greedy in the dictionary. And the word greedy in the dictionary says desiring more than you need or more than you deserve. Okay, so let's talk about that. More than you need. Okay, all of us, most of us who are watching this, in the United States, there is probably nothing that we really need that we don't have. Do I need another pair of shoes? No, I don't need another pair of shoes. There's people in other countries who don't have a single pair of shoes. I've got a couple dozen. Do I need, my Vitamix is getting all dark and ugly because I use my Vitamix to make green smoothies every day. Do I need to upgrade my Vitamix to get a new container so it's clear and pretty? No. Many of us upgrade things, even though the functionality is working. We upgrade because we like the feeling of something new and pretty. So we all are greedy if we use that measurement. So I'm like, okay, that's how I'm greedy. Yes, that's true. I desire things that are more than what I quote unquote need. And then it said more than you deserve. And I was like, this is an interesting one because Tony Robbins will charge $1 million for somebody to coach with him personally. Who gave him permission to charge $1 million? Where does that deservedness scale exist? He said, I am going to charge $1 million for somebody to coach with me personally because he decided. And so I was like, you know what? Like, who has this scale of deservedness that they own? I don't want to be measured by somebody else's deservedness scale. The deservedness scale is inside of me. And frankly, in my relationship with God, I'm like, God, you're the one who gives me my worth. Nobody else is going to define that. And so that was an example where I turned around that criticism that could be painful for those of us who are heart-centered. For somebody to call us greedy is like, oh my God, God forbid they call us that. But I turned it around. I'm like, how is this true? And so it's like, oh, so anytime somebody, this is what I anticipate. I have envisioned this before, that I would be speaking on a stage and maybe a heckler stands up and says something really, really painful that used to hurt me, like my mom, like judging me at my core of who I was as a person or my heart. And you know what I have learned in this turnaround, step number 3, that this is what I'm going to do. That's a good one. I haven't worked through that one yet. Thank you. You've given me a new one. Because every time we can turn it around, it takes the sting away and it won't hurt us anymore. So that is one thing. It's like, rather than rejecting, our typical stance is reject, reject, reject. I'm not going to let these painful words in. What if you turned around and said, how is it true? How is it true? Even if there's just a tiny glimpse of truth that you can take from that and own, the words lose their sting. Okay? And any judgment you may have of another person, any criticism you may have of another person, turn it around. Turn it around to you. All right, so let me tell number 4. Here's number 4 about how to deal with your critics, and that is tell on yourself. Go ahead and tell on yourself. Whatever it is that you fear being criticized, go ahead and tell on yourself. So I'm going to tell you guys the truth right now. I'm going to model what this means to tell on yourself. So I'm just noticing again, these tears that are coming up for me, you guys, is because this message is really real for me right now. It's present. And I know that's how it's going to most powerfully serve you, because it's easy, like when time passes and we're not in touch with emotion, that we lose that deeper connection to what's going on in the hearts of ourselves and others when we're past it. But one of the things that I really try to challenge myself to do is to share it while it's going on, because I know that it'll resonate with you, because I can tell what's going on in your heart when I'm in touch with my own. So what happened 7 months ago when I got really sick is my brain started to not function the way that it normally does. And so I couldn't even remember short-term things. I couldn't remember like clients' names. Like one of my clients, I was like, oh my gosh, what's his name? What's his name? I know it starts with an A. And I just saw 3 letters, but I was like, I couldn't even remember the full name because my brain, my short-term memory was like lost. My capacity to articulate things was lost. My use of words was lost. And there's all these things that medically was going on that are this connection neurologically to what was happening to my brain. And this was huge for me because I have, and this will be another story, but one of the things that I've learned is that how much of my identity I had put on my brain, on my capacity to reason, my capacity to analyze, my capacity to think critically and strategically. And when my brain wasn't working the way that it was, I was going into fear of survival. Yikes. If my brain is not accessible to work for me the way that I need it to, is my safety, is my security, is my survival at question? But I'll tell you what happened with this. And some of you may know this. Most of you probably do that know me personally. I hope this isn't like really noisy when I move. But my mom's from Brazil. And I grew up in Brazil for part of my years, in South America for part of my years. I can't tell who that is who's given me lots of love, but thank you so much. My mom is Brazilian. And so one of the things that she would do is she would mix up her words a lot. Like her syntax would get all messed up. Like us as a family, we would kind of make fun of her, but her syntax would get messed up. So she'd put words in different orders because the grammar in Brazil and Portuguese is different than U.S. grammar. Now, I'll give it to my mom. She knew like 5 languages, all the love languages and English. Like, who were we to criticize her? But she would mess up her words. And so on occasion, I do the same thing. I will mix up my words. So I'm telling on myself here. I will mix up my words. I will mix up my syntax. I will mess up my order of stuff because it's like I was accustomed to a mom who spoke Portuguese and who kind of would do some of this mix up. So sometimes some of that mix up happens. And usually when I'm writing, I get to massage my words and I mean, I studied communication in undergrad, so I love writing and words use, and so I can usually catch it in my writing. But what happened was, this is especially sensitive for me because my brain was impacted by my health 7 months ago. That to share on a Facebook Live like this and take the risk that I'm going to say something, it's my own critic, the one of the 7 that exists, will watch my Facebook Lives, and I can tell when I wasn't able to pull the word that I was trying to say, and I'll be like, oh shoot, I said the wrong word. Like, I did a Facebook Live in my group recently, and I said the word mastermind instead of mindset. And I did an interview recently with somebody, and I was using the wrong word repeatedly, and I couldn't catch it in the moment. Only when I went back and watched it, and it was like, oh, I wanted to beat myself up. And there's somebody in my life who is important to me, who I kind of tease as being the grammar Nazi, because this person would, even in my texts, I would text and they would say, I think you misused that word, and here's a link to a website of how to properly use it. And I noticed myself, text, like, we're messy in text. But with this person, I would be so careful to make sure that my grammar was correct, and this is in texting. And so to show up on a Facebook Live with the risk that my brain won't be able to pull the words, I'll be able to express it in the way that I need to, feels so vulnerable. So I'm just putting it out there. So step number 4, tell on yourself. I will probably mess stuff up. I may not have the right words. Just like earlier, Fred, you're so gracious to have pulled up that quote that I was trying to reference, because my brain's not remembering these things all the time to the way that I want. But this is the thing that is also present for me, is that when I got so sick, I was like, gosh, if I lost my brain, if I lost my voice, if I lost my capacity to write, I would be devastated that I did not share this message that I feel called to share. This message about supporting people in this inner world of stuff that goes on. This message that you're enough. You are enough. You're more than enough. You have what it takes to create what's in your heart to create. And if I don't take the time to share like things that are here in this message because of that fear, I'm not guaranteed that I will have my health forever. I'm not guaranteed I'll have my capacity to write, to speak, to have access to my brain. So it's become this sense of urgency. Like, I'm not going to wait till my brain is operating at the level that I need it to before I share. So it's going to come out messy. So step number 4 is tell on yourself. So I am telling on myself now to just tell you it will be messy at times. I will choose the wrong word. I may use syntax that's completely out of order. All right. So I'm ready for that quote unquote criticism that may come, but I'm already telling on myself. So it's like, rather than hiding in shame and self-judgment, I'm just putting it out there that it's like, yep, if you catch it, like, I'm fully aware it's happening. So number 1, create a safe space of people who champion you. Number 2, identify who the everyone is. It's usually 7 people or less, including yourself. Number 3, turn it around and look at how is it true. Number 4, tell on yourself. And here's the last one, develop compassion. Oh, I have to share this quote as it relates. This is, frankly, reading this is what prompted me to do this Facebook Live. Martin Luther King Jr. said this. Everyone can be great because anyone can serve. You don't have to have a degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. I believe all of us have been through difficulties in life, and I share my story very openly because I personally believe that what we have been through is part of our greatest contribution to others. I share this because I hope it encourages anybody who's watching this. I hope that it encourages you. Darn, a phone call came in. I share my personal story in hopes to encourage you. I share these steps about overcoming the critics because I've lived it. And I believe we're all here to serve and to help each other. There's a verse in the Bible that says that we're all different parts of the body and we're all working together. And so we serve each other in different ways, and our stories serve, our messages serve. So I can't hold back, because I believe this is part of our contribution, and I want to model that for you so that you'll do the same. And so I loved this when I saw this Martin Luther King Jr. And you know, the thing about it, about Martin Luther King Jr., many of us wait because we're trying to be perfect. And many of us wait. I can't tell you how many women that I worked with, men too, I don't want to exclude the men, around body. Our relationship with our body, and we say like, oh, I can't go on camera because I've got to lose 30 pounds. Imagine if Martin Luther King Jr. waited to lose 30 pounds before he led the civil rights movement and said, you know what, I'm going to share this message of I have a dream, that we're not judged by our skin, but we're judged by our character. What if he waited? I mean, look at how many photos and quotes and everything. And the man, he could have waited till he lost 30 pounds before he shared that, but he didn't. He didn't. Whatever you think you have to wait, don't wait. What if Mother Teresa said, you know what, I got to get rid of these wrinkles. Man, this is not a good publicity. This is not good publicity to have all these wrinkles. No, she served. She served. What if Oprah waited until she overcame her struggle with food before she did her work in the world? What if, what if Nelson Mandela, what if he waited? What if he waited until, he went through a divorce, right? What if he said, oh, I have this shame about divorce, so who am I to talk about overcoming challenges in the world? When he went through prison, being in prison, and then he ended up in this challenge with divorce. What if he judged himself about divorce and held back his message about that you can overcome anything? Okay? Don't hold back. And this fifth step about developing compassion is, if we put ourselves in the shoes of our critics, we can understand that given their circumstances, given what they've been through, given what their mindset is, given what their perspective is, given whatever criticism they're going through, we can't say that we wouldn't be the same way. And with my mom, who is one of my biggest critics, one of my biggest experiences over the last several years has been putting myself in her shoes. And looking at, even when she called me the C word, she had a very traumatic experience occur to her with a date that changed her life, and that she didn't process through all that. So it's like that inner critic inside of her was being projected on me. And I had to go through a whole experience of when I said, I used to say, I'm not good enough for my mom. And then when I did the turnaround on it, Byron Katie's powerful work, the turnaround, and Byron Katie has you turn it around and see, is it true? Ask the question, is it true? And you turn it around multiple ways. And I turned it around to asking the question, I'm not good enough for my mom. And I turned it around to, my mom's not good enough for me. And I was like, well, not really, because she's the mom. I believe that I received the mom I need to develop into the person I'm supposed to be. So she was perfect. I turned it around to, I was good enough for my mom. I turned it around to, my mom was not good enough for herself. And I knew that's really, what was going on. That my mom did not feel good enough for herself. She had an inner critic, and so it came out as criticism to me. And it just allowed me so much compassion to be like, wow, when people are critical of us, like they're living with that critic inside of their inner selves 24/7. And it's probably very, very loud. And so if we can just bring compassion to others, bring compassion to ourselves, there might be times when we're critical, bring compassion. There's just bringing love to any situation. So if you didn't get to watch all of this, I'll just review these quickly. How to, see, my words didn't come out right. Perfect. How to handle your critics. Create a safe place with people who are your champions, that you know believe in you. And thank you for those of you who are on here today that were that for me, even in this very vulnerable share. Number 2, identify who the everyone is. And perhaps that's just 7 people or less, but we project it as everyone, all the critics. And it's usually 7 people or less that we've experienced painful criticism from. And it's usually we're one of those 7. Number 3, turn it around and see, like, how is it true? Number 4, tell on yourself. Tell on yourself. Don't let the critics get the best of you. Tell on yourself. And number 5, develop compassion. So tell me in the notes, tell me in the chat if this has served you in any way. That's my heart. Even if this serves just one person, I'd love to see the impact that this has had on you. And thank you just for being a safe place for me to share my heart and share this message that was bubbling up inside of me. And my heart was just to share it in service to you. All right. So I will say ciao for now. Beijos. Mwah. Lots of love. Have a blessed day.